Chapter 1. Hermetic Writings. 1. One of the definitions of the word alchemy is the power to transmute, or the act or process of transforming something common into something precious. Transmutation or change, on all planes of existence, visible or invisible, and in all aspects of life, is the basic idea presented in the teachings derived from the sage Hermes Trismegistus, which are encompassed under the name of Hermetic philosophy. Whatever the denomination used, there have been, in all ages, men whose imaginations were inflamed by these ideas. The reasoning was reached that, just as man was created in the image of God, man can create in the same way as God. That which is above is like that which is below. Such is the axiom of the alchemist. There could not be one set of laws for the cosmic and another for man, therefore, the same set of laws governs everything. They are the cosmic laws, laws that would be the same no matter where or how they were applied. Creation began when the cosmic mind, through the power of will, gave impulse to consciousness, which produced manifestation. The alchemist, following this reasoning, conceived the idea of the prima materia, or first matter, a basic substance from which all matter is formed. The prima materia is what the Rosicrucians call spirit energy, for when motion or vibration was imparted to it by the mind, by the will, and by consciousness, this spirit energy divided into all forms of matter. The alchemists were unfamiliar with the terminology of modern physicists, however. They conceived and understood the theoretical concept that it would be possible to alter matter by turning it into prima materia and then creating with it whatever they desired. Because, in reality, all matter was one single thing, with only a vibratory difference in its various formations. Accepting this premise as true, the structure of the alchemist's reasoning and the development of his ideas were logical. He believed that all common and base metals could be transmuted into their highest form, gold, and that it would be possible to create a tincture capable of effecting this transformation. He dreamed of transmuting the human body into something perfect, with a universal remedy capable of curing all diseases. He also believed in the possibility of transmuting everything that was base and common in the essence of man's personality into a transcendental being, into the personality of a master. All this was something more than simple dreams, for there was evidence passed down by sages of the past who had already trodden the same path. The purpose of the alchemist, therefore, is the transmutation of something common into something precious. This objective is achieved through a true understanding of the law of correspondences or cosmic law, which acts on all levels. The process of transmutation, however, is one of growth as well as change. By tradition, the how of the process has always been a carefully preserved secret. The medieval alchemist saw fit to describe the steps of transmutation in enigmatic and cautious terms. Some alchemists spoke of 4 steps, others cited 12 or more. Paracelsus, who lived most of his life in the 16th century, described 7 steps. 1. Calcination. 2. Sublimation. 3. Solution. 4. Putrefaction. 5. Distillation. 6. Coagulation. 7. Tincture. These appear to be chemical processes, but they could also describe processes on higher levels. The Hermetic writings are works attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a character whom most historians consider allegorical or mythical. Dr. H. Spencer Lewis, however, referred to Hermes as a real person. The treatises contained in the Hermetica are in the form of conversations that introduce the mysteries, with the mystic interlocutor receiving the first hints of cosmic consciousness, retaining them in his conscious mind. I was liberated, full of power. He flowed into me, and full of what he had taught me about the nature of the all. The Hermetica, along with the Emerald Tablet, which was the basis of alchemy, are 2 strictly Hermetic works upon which alchemical science and philosophy are founded. The Emerald Tablet, already studied in other Amorc discourses, will be compared with the Hermetic writings in a chapter of the present book. This chapter consists of a summary of 4 Hermetic writings. Since they are summaries, the paragraph numbers have been omitted, and omissions and condensations are not pointed out. What now follows is a summary of Book 1, Poimandres, which is a dialogue between the mind and Poimandres or Hermes, narrated by Hermes. The comments added to this summary are in parentheses. The author begins by saying that he was meditating and provides 2 elements of his meditation, the elevation of thoughts or consciousness and the repression of the objective senses. A vast being appears before him. Hermes asks Poimandres who he is, and Poimandres replies that he is mind, in Greek, nous. The Rosicrucian order uses nous to describe the universal, cosmic, creative force, the energy that can be considered as mind, or cosmic, psychic energy. The writings say that the mind is always with man. In other words, man has within himself the cosmic mind. He is never separated from it. Hermes, the author, desires to know the things that exist, to understand their nature, and to know God. He is advised to keep such desires in mind, and the mind, Poimandres, will teach him. He should concentrate and meditate on these things. Poimandres' aspect changes, and all things open up to Hermes. Everything becomes light. Then comes the darkness, expelling smoke and letting out an inarticulate cry like a lament. From the light comes the word, which descends upon the moist nature. This is creation, which can be diagrammed as follows on the next page. Darkness, mind, light, the word, moist nature, fire, air, water, earth. However, light is mind, the first God, and the Logos, the word, is thus the Son of God. This corresponds to man, in whom the mind is the father in speech, the Son. Nous, mind, is the father and corresponds to PTA. Logos, word, is the Son and corresponds to Thoth. The two are united. For life is the union of Logos and Nous, word and mind. Concentrating on the light, the author discovers that it consists of countless powers, and that it has become an ordered and boundless cosmos, and that what he had just seen was the archetypal idea of creation, the cosmic model. The elements of nature come into existence by the will of God, by the word, and by the copy or imitation of the archetypal cosmos. In this way, the material cosmos is a copy of the archetypal cosmos. The first mind is life and light. It is bisexual or bipolar, containing within itself both factors necessary for creation. Thus, it produces another mind, the artificer of things, the architect of the universe, as some more recent authors have called it, or the craftsman of alchemy who, like nature, is assisted by the human craftsman. It is possible that here J.S.M found his concept of two minds and two wills. The second mind was the fire and the spirit of the air. It created 7 administrators who encompass the sensible world, or material cosmos. These administrators correspond to what Flood calls intelligences, angels, or rulers of the planets. Their administration, according to the Hermetic writings, is called destiny. We could use the term karma. It was said that the word came from the light, and that fire, air, water, and earth were separated and kept in motion by the word. Now, we learn that the word leaps from the elements born below to pure nature, uniting with the artificer, the second mind, for the word has the same nature as the second mind. Without the word, the elements are pure matter. The artificer mind is the demiurge, the creator. Together with the word, he encompasses the spheres of the planets and the stars, and makes them turn so that they begin where they end, from the elements, nature, as a second mind, desires and produces creatures without the logos, winged things in the air, things that swim in the waters, etc. But the mind, which is life and light, is what gives birth to man, that is, to cosmic man who, as man, is the image of his Father. God loves his image and gives to man all that he, God, has made. Man also feels the desire to create and receives the Father's permission. Each of the 7 administrators gives man a portion of his work. In other words, it is this portion that makes man a participant in the cosmic work, and in part, it is this that he gives back in his ascension, through the spheres, to God. Man understands the essence of the administrators, shares in their nature, and desires to cross the boundary of their spheres. Nature is the foreman of God. Man has the activity of the 7 administrators. The myth of the love between nature and man symbolizes their attraction, harmony, and union. Both are the image of God. They are the macrocosm and the microcosm. Man, however, possesses the logos, reason, while nature is devoid of reasoning. Furthermore, man is dual. He is mortal because of his body and immortal because of the essential man, or that part of him which comes from the mind or nous. He has all things under his power, yet he is subject to destiny. He is above harmony, or outside the cosmos, however. He is its servant. Just as God is bisexual, so is man. The immortal part of man never sleeps, just as God never sleeps, but in his mortal part he is subjugated by sleep. From the union between man and nature arise 7 men who are also bisexual. We then have the cosmic man or archetype, 7 administrators, 7 archetype men, and God, all bisexual or bipolar, capable of creating from their own natures or elements. The 7 men receive the vital spirit from the ether. From fire they receive their maturation, from earth the negative polarity, and from water the positive polarity. In them life becomes soul, and light becomes mind. All living creatures were bisexual, but are separated into males and females, and all creatures multiply according to their species. He who dedicates himself to knowing himself, however, will enter the good that is above all being. He who allows himself to be led astray by eros, or love, dissipates his love in the body, wanders through the darkness of the world of the senses, and suffers death. The man who knows himself refers to the knowledge of the entire self in contrast to the one who loses himself in the world of the objective senses. Ignorance, therefore, consists of love for what is material, the source of darkness. He who knows himself participates in the good because the Father of all consists of life and light. The immortal part of man comes from life and light. The man who knows this returns to life. Mind is present in good and holy men. The mind as guardian will prevent maleficent activities. When the material body dies, it becomes subject to changes and its ideal form, eidos, becomes invisible. Man then ascends to the spheres through harmony. To each of the 7 zones he surrenders an attribute. He ascends then to the 8th sphere clothed in his own power. In other words, he will have left with the 7 spheres the characteristics derived from them. Then, those who reach the 8th sphere ascend to the Father. Becoming immanent powers, they are in God, which is the full attainment of those who have achieved gnosis, or knowledge of God. Having given thanks to God, the author begins to preach to men the beauty of piety and gnosis. He sows among them the logos of wisdom, and they receive the water of immortal life to drink. The remainder of Book 1 is a hymn and a prayer. Holy is God, the Father of all, who was before the first principle. Holy is God, whose purpose is accomplished by his diverse powers. Holy is God, who desires to be known, and is known by those who belong to him. Holy are you, who by your word constructed all that exists. Holy are you, whose radiance nature has not obscured. Holy are you, of whom nature is an image. Holy are you, who are greater than all preeminence. Holy are you, who surpass all praises. Accept the pure offerings of words from a soul and a heart raised up to your presence, you whom words cannot describe, no tongue can express, whom only silence can declare. I pray that I may never turn away from the knowledge of you that corresponds to our being. Hear my prayer, and place the power within me, so that, having obtained this gift, I may enlighten those of my race who are in ignorance, my brothers, and your children. In this I believe and bear witness that I shall enter into life and into light. Blessed are you, Father. Your creature seeks to share in your holiness, for you have given him all authority. Book 5 of the Hermetica covers the teachings of Hermes to his son Tat, another form of the word Thoth. The book refers to God, to the manifest, and to the unmanifest. In this explanation we learn the nature of God or the cosmic. The basic argument is that God in himself is unmanifest. If he were manifest, he would not exist, for what is manifest is subject to modification, to becoming. God is not subject to changes, therefore he is unmanifest. He always is, but he makes all other things manifest. He does not come to be by making himself visible, for this would be manifestation. God is beyond visibility. This concept is similar to Eastern ideas about the world as appearance or Maya. By making all things arise, God appears in everything and through everything. Pray to the One, for only thought can see the hidden or unmanifest. If you desire to see God, contemplate the sun, the stars. Every order must be created. That which has no order was not created. Everything that was created possesses order, consisting of place, number, and measure. Who produced all that is, if not the hidden God, who made all things according to his will? He is greater than all names. He is the One, and his work is to be Father. His own being is to conceive and create all things. Because of this, he does not exist if he is not continually creating everything that is in the sky, in the air, on the earth, and in the depths of the sea. He is in both the things that are and those that are not. Those that exist he made manifest, and those that do not exist he contains within himself. He is beyond any designation and can only be apprehended by thought. However, we can see him with our eyes in that which is manifest. He is incorporeal, however. He has many bodies, or is materialized in all bodies. All things that exist are him. All names, therefore, are his. For this reason he has no name, because he is the Father of all. He has no mode, nor place, nor anything of what is manifest. However, the totality of things is in him and proceeds from him. He gives everything and takes nothing away. As Hermes says, "You are that which I am. You are that which I do. You are that which I say." God is mind because he thinks. God is Father because he creates. God is God because he makes things active. God is good because he creates everything. This diagram expresses the nature of God and of creation. God's soul, water, air. More subtle and refined vibrations, more volatile, more psychic or cosmic. In Book 8, Hermes also teaches his son, this time about destruction and death. From this we learn the nature of God, of the cosmos, and of man. Death is a word devoid of facts, for death is destruction, and nothing in the cosmos is destroyed. The cosmos is a second God, an immortal being, and no part of it can die. First, there is God, eternal, without beginning, the creator of the whole. Second, there is the cosmos, made by God in his image, kept in a state of being by God, an eternally living being. The Father is eternal in himself, but the cosmos is eternalized by the Father. Third, there is man, made in the image of the cosmos. His mind is above all creatures on earth. He feels himself to be a part of the cosmos and can apprehend God through thought. He apprehends the cosmos as a body, but understands God as incorporeal, as the mind of the good. Matter retains some disorder. This is the reason for growth and decay. The cosmos is made by God and is in God. Man is made by the cosmos and is in the cosmos. The beginning, end, and union of all is God. Book 11, like the first, is a dialogue between the mind and Hermes, where the latter wishes to know nature and the relationship between the cosmos and God. We have already discussed God, the cosmos, and man. The series, or perhaps the modes of God's manifestation, are in descending order, to use a metaphor. God, eon or eternity, cosmos, time, becoming. God makes the eon. The eon is in God. The soul of the eon is God. The eon makes the cosmos. The cosmos is in the eon. The soul of the cosmos is the eon. The eon makes time. Time is in the cosmos. Time makes becoming. Chapter 2, Hermetic Writings, 2 in Stobaeus' compilations on Greek literature. There is a passage that expresses the concept of as above, so below, kore kosmou, mead. The passage does not appear in the translation made by Scott. This is perhaps due to the Greek version that was used. The kore kosmou refers to the teachings of Isis to Horus. Having been taught by Trismegistus that the things below were arranged by God to be in harmony with the things that are above, they, Osiris and Isis, established on earth the sacred rites over which the mysteries of heaven preside. Because Isis is speaking with her son, and the passage cites Osiris in the third person, some authorities thought that the passage must be spurious, added later, for example. But this is not necessarily true. It is common for people to speak of themselves in the third person. Furthermore, and more importantly, the fact probably indicates the citation of Isis, Osiris, and Horus in the rituals and teachings of a group, that is, the use of mystical names by which the initiate assumes the role of one of the components of the trio. The same compilation of Stobaeus has another passage referring to the concept of the above and below. The world that is below was put in order and filled with the things that are placed above, for the things below have no power to put in order the things above. The weaker mysteries, therefore, must give precedence to the more powerful ones, and the system of higher things is stronger than that of below, being totally unalterable, unable to be apprehended by the thoughts of mortal man. Asclepius, of whom we only have the Latin translation of the Greek original, says, "Do you not know, Asclepius, that Egypt is the image of heaven, or, more exactly, the transfer and descent of everything that is governed and exercised in heaven? It must be said that, indeed, our earth is the temple of the world. This place is the above in terms of the heaven of the world, while the below is equated to Egypt, which makes the passage similar to the concept of macrocosm and microcosm. The tablet and the Hermetic writings equally say that the all comes from the one. We find the following in Book 3 of the Hermetica. God is the first of all things. The universe and nature come from God. God is the source of all that exists. He is the source of mind, nature, and matter. He is the wisdom that reveals all, for he is the source of all. Nature, energy, necessity, the end, and renewal. Book 4 says, "With the logos and not with hands, the demiurge, creating mind, created the universal cosmos, therefore. You must think of him as being everywhere and being all things, the author of all things, the one and only, who by his will created all things. His body cannot be touched, seen, or measured. It does not extend through space. Nothing compares to him. He is not fire, nor water, nor breath. Pneuma, however, all of this comes from him." This passage also clearly shows the role of the logos, the creative word, as an agent of the author, creating mind. Also in Book 4, one reads this passage, "The one, being the source and root of all, is in all as source and root. Without the source nothing exists, but the source comes from nothing but itself, since it is the beginning of all. It is its own source, for there is no other. The one, being the source, contains all numbers, but is not contained by any number. It generates all numbers and is not generated by any number. Now, everything that is generated is imperfect, divisible, subject to additions and subtractions, but the perfect is subjugated to none of this. That which is subject to additions receives them from the one, but succumbs to its own fragility when it can no longer contain the one. And now, O Tat, I have sketched for you, as much as was possible, the image of God. If you apply yourself to it with the eyes of the heart, then, believe me, my son, you will find the path that leads upward, or rather, the image itself will guide you. The tablet says, just as all things are created from a single one, by the will and command of the only one, or united one, who created it, so all things are born from this single thing by prescription and union. In the Hermetica, Hermes instructs his son Tat in Book 5:2, making all things appear. He appears in all and through all, but especially in those that he wishes to manifest. Therefore, pray first to the Lord and Father, the only one from whom the One comes, to show you his clemency, so that you may know and understand such a great God, and so that one of his rays may shine in your mind. Book 11:11 also expresses the fundamental unity of the One. It is clear that one makes these things, and he is this one. The soul is one, life is one, matter is one. The creativity of God, or the creating mind, is an essential element in both the tablet and the Hermetic writings. Book 11:17 contains this passage, just as man cannot exist without life, God cannot exist without creating what is good. It could be said that the life and movement of God generate life and movement in all things. The concept of perfection is common to both, to the tablet and to the Hermetica. In the tablet it is stated that all things are created from one, and that this is the generator of all perfection in this entire world. Book 11:13 of the Hermetica declares, it has already been demonstrated that nothing can be inactive. How much more true this is in relation to God. If there is anything that he cannot do, he is imperfect, something that no one will dare affirm. He is not inactive, but perfect, and he creates all things. The tablet says that all things are created by the will and command of the only one. Hermes, as the author of the first book, asks Poimandres, from where did the elements of nature arise? Poimandres answers, from the will of God. After receiving the word and contemplating the beautiful archetype cosmos and copying it, the word is analogous to the command cited in the tablet. There being, then, in the tablet and in the Hermetica, two elements, the word and the will. Also in Book 1, the text tells us, from the lower elements, nature, as mind, desired and produced creatures destitute of logos, or word. But the preceding sentence says, the creating mind, together with the word, encompassing the spheres and making them revolve, set its own formations rolling like a wheel. In this way, the creating mind and the word created the spheres, the macrocosm, and the above. Nature, or the creating mind as nature, in turn, desired and produced, in the lower world, creatures destitute of logos. The will of God is also mentioned in Book 10. Know then, Tat, that God, the Father, and the good are of the same nature, or rather, energy. For nature is a term that refers to growth, mobile and immobile, or human and divine, each of which he brings into a state of being, by the will. The energy of God is, then, his will. Furthermore, his essence is to will the existence of all things. For what is God, Father, and good, if not the existence of all things that are not yet? This, the will of God, constitutes the existence of all things that are. This is God, the Father, the good. The concept of duality is symbolized in the Hermetica by the bisexuality of God, by the 7 administrators, the 7 cosmic men, and by the first man. Bisexuality is also a symbol of self-generation. A bisexual creature or being needs nothing but itself to create. This concept is given in the tablet, in the declaration that its father is the sun, its mother the moon. The sun is masculine and positive, the moon is feminine and negative. But the sun and the moon are the 2 eyes of Horus. They are an inseparable pair and are part of the macrocosm. They represent duality within the unity of the macrocosm. Asclepius 1:2 says, only that which tends upward grants life, that which tends downward is subservient to it. Furthermore, everything that descends from above is generative, that which rises upward from below is nourishing. The earth, the only one to remain firm in its place, receives all that is generative. To put the idea in different terms, the higher is life-giving and generative, and the lower is nourishing. The earth is, therefore, the nurse that receives what is generated. This brings us to Book 11:7. For the love and fusion of contraries and differences became light that shines through the action of God, the Father of all good, the ruler of all order, the director of the 7 worlds. Contemplate the moon, the forerunner of them all, the instrument through which nature works and transforms matter here below. Contemplate the earth placed at the center of the whole, foundation of the beautiful cosmos, nourisher and nurse of all earthly creatures. The tablet says its power is perfect when it is transformed into earth. The latter part of Book 11 speaks of the great evil, ignorance of God, for nothing exists that is not the image of God. Yet you say that God is invisible. You should not speak thus, for who is more manifest than he? For this very reason he made all things, so that through all things you might see him. This is the goodness of God, this is his virtue, that he manifests himself through everything. Nothing is invisible, not even the incorporeal. The mind can be seen through its thoughts, and God can be seen in his work. God is perfect, and the manifest is his image. His virtue lies in that he manifests himself through all things. However, the word virtue comes from the Latin word meaning strength, power, and virility. The tablet instructs the student to separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the crude or gross. In alchemical terms, this signifies the separation of the fixed from the volatile, and in mystical terms it signifies the separation of the objective from the subconscious, or the material from the psychic, and the separation and suppression of the senses for meditation. The Hermetica, in Book 10, 4-6, tells the student that in order to apprehend the beauty of the good, one must be able to see it, and it can only be fully seen by those who are liberated from the body, for knowledge of it comes from profound silence and the suppression of all the senses. Regarding the subject of separation, in Book 7, 2-3, the student is exhorted to seek a guide who will show them the door to the house of knowledge. The title of the book is Ignorance of God is the Greatest Evil of Man. The clear light shines free of all darkness. No one is intoxicated. All are sober, gazing with the eyes of the heart upon him who desires to be seen. He cannot be heard with the ears, nor seen with the eyes, nor can the tongue speak of him, but he can only be known with the mind and the heart. But first, you must rid yourself of the garments you wear, this web of ignorance, this foundation of evil, this chain of corruption, this cloak of darkness. In other words, we must separate the psychic from the physical to achieve mystical union, or, in the terms of the tablet, to ascend from earth to heaven. Regarding ascension, Book 4 teaches that all men possess speech, but not all possess mind, or nous. But many are the men who have partaken of the gift of mind that God has sent down, and these, my son, in comparison to the others, are as immortal gods to mortal men. They encompass within their mind all things that exist, the things of the earth and the things of heaven, and even that which is above heaven, and, elevating themselves to those heights, they behold the good. In Book 11:20, ascension is once again framed in mystical and psychic terms. If you do not make yourself equal to God, you cannot know him, for like is known by like. Transport yourself beyond all that is corporeal, and expand yourself to that greatness which is beyond all measure. Rise higher than all heights, descend lower than all depths, gather within yourself all the qualities of all creatures, of fire and water, of the dry and the moist. This passage refers not only to ascension, but also to the separation of the psychic from the material. In Book 1, 24-26, Hermes asks to be taught the ascension by which men enter into life. The answer refers to the transition. When the material body is dissolved, you first surrender the body to the work of transformation, and the ideal form it possessed becomes invisible. Your ethical habits you surrender to the daemon. The physical senses return to their sources. It is thus that man ascends through the harmony, that is, the spheres of the heavens. To each zone, man returns what he received from it. Namely, during his descent at birth, clothed in his own power, man ascends to the nature of the eighth sphere, and finally to the Father. Becoming a power himself, he is in God. Much like the tablet, this book associates power with ascension, and, consequently, with a descent to earth through birth. This power, which the tablet declares to be perfect when transformed into earth, is considered in Book 11 to be active within the manifest. The Creator is in all things. He is not confined to a single place, nor does he do only one thing, but rather he creates all things. Being power, he is active within the things he creates, and is not independent of them, however. Everything that is made is subject to God. Both the tablet and the Hermetica say that God is perfect. In Book 11, we find the title, The Good is in God alone, and nowhere else. The good, O Asclepius, is an essence free of all motion and of all becoming, possessing a stable energy centered within itself. It lacks nothing, is not subject to passions, and possesses an ever-complete supply. It is one and yet is the source of all things, for that which provides all things is the good. It is forever good, but this belongs to no one, save God alone. He needs nothing, therefore, if he were to desire anything, he would be maleficent. He can lose nothing, nor can he be injured by a loss. There is nothing so strong that it could do him harm. Since these things do not exist in God, what remains but God alone? Book 2 also expresses the perfect in terms of the good. Only God is good. All other things can be separated from the nature of the good. The body and the psyche have no place for the good, for the good is so immense that it coexists with all things that exist, both corporeal and incorporeal, sensible and intelligible. The individual cannot possess the good, because the good is God and is coextensive with everything that exists. That which exists is therefore perfect as a whole. Chapter 3. The Emerald Tablet. The oldest known references to the Emerald Tablet are Arabic and date back to the 9th century, probably originating from Syriac versions. These references attribute its origin to Greek authors, but differ regarding the authorship. Legends claim that the tablet was found with Hermes in his tomb, or with Alexander, also in his tomb. It was supposedly written in Phoenician characters on an emerald tablet. The versions differ on some significant points. In this work, I have utilized the Latin and German versions found in Heinrich Conrad's Amphitheater of Eternal Wisdom, this version being given in the series of discourses on symbols. The tablet expresses the Hermetic axiom as above, so below, but it is not the only source of this concept. It can be found under different terminology in many religious and philosophical writings. The tablet is unique in that it expresses itself in alchemical terms and serves as a philosophical or metaphysical foundation for alchemy. Astrology and magic are also based on this concept, or on the idea of the macrocosm and the microcosm. The Emerald Tablet is written in alchemical terms and presents alchemical theory. The Hermetic writings are written in terms of mystical philosophy. However, the ideas contained in both can be applied to alchemy. The concepts are therefore parallel, one corresponds to the other. From the Emerald Tablet, true, without falsehood, certain and more than real, that which is below, or inferior, is like that which is above, or superior, and what is above is like what is below to accomplish the wonders of one thing. Just as all things are created, or restored from one thing, by the will and command, or by the meditation of the one who created it, so all things are born, or proceed, from this one thing by prescription and union, or adaptation. Its father is the sun, its mother the moon. The wind carries it in its womb, its nurse is the earth. This is the father of perfection in all the world. Its power is perfect when transformed into earth, therefore. You must separate the earth from the fire, and the subtle from the coarse and gross, but with love, with great understanding and discernment. It ascends from earth to heaven, and from heaven comes again to earth, and once again receives the power of the above and the below. In this way you will have the splendor of the whole world. All lack of understanding and ability will leave you. This is the greatest of all powers, for it can overcome every subtlety and penetrate everything that is solid. Thus the world was created. Thus rare combinations are originated and wonders are forged. This is the method of action. Therefore I am called Trismegistus, for I possess the 3 parts of the wisdom of the world. All that I have said regarding the work of the sun is fulfilled. To understand the Emerald Tablet, we will first indicate some of its main concepts, and then read the text itself, followed by an additional explanation of certain concepts. Finally, the parallels between the tablet and the Hermetic writings will be discussed, which, as far as I know, has not been done before. The first and basic Hermetic philosophy in any form is the axiom as above, so below, or, as the tablet reads, that which is below, or inferior, is like that which is above, or superior. This is analogous to the macrocosm and microcosm, the great world that is the cosmos, and the small world that is man. It is expressed in the writings when they say that the cosmos is made in the image of God, and man in the image of the cosmos. Second, there are 3 expressions that use the idea of the one, and we must understand what they mean. The tablet states, that which is above is like what is below to fulfill one thing. This thing that is fulfilled refers to what the alchemists called the philosopher's stone, but which in mystical terms refers to harmonization and cosmic consciousness. The tablet also says, just as all things are created from this single thing. The thing from which all others are created is the first matter, prima materia, of the alchemists. We say that everything is vibratory. All things are created from the first matter. All things are born from the philosopher's stone. The tablet teaches that all things are created by the will and command of the one, or, depending on the version, by a similar term, such as the united. This, naturally, refers to God as the creator, or, in Hermetic terms, to the creative mind. Third, creation is achieved by the will and command of God, and this command is verbal, therefore it is the creative word. Creation, then, is achieved by will and by the word. Fourth, its father is the sun, referring to the stone, and its mother is the moon, representing duality, but duality in one. Fifth, the tablet says that this is the father of all perfection in the whole world. God, being perfect, is the father of perfection in the world. But since God created the first matter, it could also be considered the father of perfection. And the philosopher's stone, or cosmic consciousness, when adequately used, also creates perfection. Sixth, its power is perfect when transformed into earth. It reaches its perfect power in earthly manifestation. Seventh, therefore, you must separate the earth from the fire, and the subtle from the coarse or gross. Whether the alchemy is practical or transcendental, the earthly or material must be separated from the spiritual or psychic. Eighth, it ascends from earth to heaven, and from heaven comes again to earth, and once again receives the power of the above and the below. This deals with the descent to earth and the reascension to heaven through birth and death, or, during life, the ascent and descent of meditation, or the rising and falling within the alchemical vessel, which bestow power. Ninth, this is the greatest power, for it can overcome all subtlety and penetrate everything that is solid. This power is as much material or physical as it is psychic or subtle. 10th, thus the world was created, this being the method of action. That is, just as God created the world and the cosmos creates, so too can man create. Man must act in the same way as God and nature. A key to understanding the Emerald Tablet and interpreting the one thing is the phrase to fulfill the wonders of that one thing. The first sentence of the tablet states that above and below, superior and inferior, macrocosm and microcosm, are equal because of their correspondence, and for the purpose of fulfilling or realizing the one thing. Superior and inferior refer to the realms of the above and the below, and in ancient times, this generally referred to the realm above the moon and the realm below the moon. By the law of correspondences, the one thing refers to the divine or the cosmic itself, to the cosmic within the universe and within man. In alchemical terms, this can be symbolized by the philosopher's stone, the union of duality, or the alchemical marriage. And it is represented in mythology, in medieval legends, and in mystical symbolism. But the one thing is both the cosmic and the result of the transmutation, which is a return to the cosmic, to the primal state of cosmic being. The one thing realized is transmutation, whether physical or transcendental. The second sentence tells us that all things are created from one, by the will and command of the one, or the united, of the single one, or by the meditation of the one, who created it. That from which all things are created is the prima materia, the first matter, from which all elements originate. The elements evolve from this matter to perfection. Metals evolve from the grossest forms to perfection or gold. The development occurs from the one thing created by the will of the one, or the united, or God, up to the thing that is realized. The one thing that is realized, the one created by God, and the one, or the united, or God himself, are all related and could be considered essentially as one and the same thing. The first matter is the beginning of the creation emanated from God. The one thing is the return to perfection, the cosmos, or God. The one thing that is created by God can also be the cosmos, which in the Hermetic writings is an image of God, or it can be man, who is an image of the cosmic and of God. In this case, the one or the united is God, who creates the one that is the cosmos, man, or the first matter, from which the one thing is realized or transmuted. The passage also states that all things are created from one, by the will and command, or by the meditation of the one, in the same way that all things are born from that one thing. Just as God creates, the cosmos and man create. We could reformulate the first part of the tablet as follows. The macrocosm and the microcosm correspond to each other in the realization of the one thing, transmutation. Just as all things are created from one, the first matter, by the will and command of the one, God, so all things originate from this thing, the first matter, by prescription and union, in the work of man. This is the divine mind that creates itself and restores itself. It is also the divine in man, the artificer, who creates by imitating the cosmic creator. These basic concepts, in different forms, are common to both the tablet and the Hermetic writings. The command is analogous to the word or logos of the Hermetica. Creation and transmutation are accomplished through the will and the command or logos, or, as some versions of the tablet say, by meditation. Furthermore, this is a creation or restoration, which implies a cyclical renewal, a continuous process. The creator is the cosmic agent or artificer who utilizes will and command. The cosmos and man are the agent and artificer that use prescription and union, or adaptation. The third sentence begins thus: its father is the sun, its mother the moon. The sun and the moon symbolize the duality of which the one thing is the union. But they also represent the above and the below, the superior and inferior realms. In this way, the one is born from a duality. The sun is the giver of light. It is the active, the sulfur, the king, the gold. The moon is the receiver of light, the reflector of light, passive. It is the mercury, or salt, the queen, the silver. The sun is immaterial, subtle, volatile, psychic. In relation to the sun, the moon is material, gross, fixed, the lowest vibratory frequencies. The wind carries it in its belly, refers to the pneuma, to the spiritus, to the breath, and to the life force, the immaterial element inhaled along with the air. The belly refers to the womb and to birth. The one is formed and brought to birth by the wind or life force. Its nurse as the earth represents the concept that in creation or manifestation the material, earthly element is necessary. But the nurse cares for, nourishes, and leads the one to its proper development and perfection. The nurse is the Platonic receptacle, which receives the life force or soul. The wind and the earth form another duality, and thus we have two pairs, sun and moon, wind and earth. The one is the father of all perfection in all this world. That is, the first matter is the father of the one thing, or philosopher's stone. The one, or united, creates the first matter, which in turn is the father of the one thing, or philosopher's stone, which is the return to the cosmic of the one. The one is born from the duality of sun and moon, but is in itself the father of all perfection. All things are born from the one, are created by the one, and are perfection in the one. Its power is perfect when transformed into earth. In other words, mundane material manifestation is necessary for the realization of the one thing. And it is part of the cyclical process necessary for the realization of the one thing. First, it becomes manifest in earthly form, then it is separated into earth and fire. You must separate the earth from the fire, and the subtle from the gross. Only after this separation does it ascend from the earth to heaven, and from heaven descend again to earth, and once more receive the power of the above and the below. The steps presented here are: 1. The earth, the receptacle, receives the soul or life force, and it is transformed into earth. 2. The earth, or the gross, is separated from the subtle or fire. 3. The subtle, the soul or psychic part, ascends to the above, descends to the below, and receives the power. By this means you shall have the splendor of the whole world. This splendor, in terms of the transmutation of man, is illumination or cosmic consciousness. It is a union or unification. All lack of understanding or capacity will abandon you. This is the greatest of powers, for it can overcome all subtlety and penetrate everything that is solid. Thus was the world created, that is, by God. This is the way to act, meaning that this is the way for man to act. Just as the alchemical process requires the separation of the subtle and the gross, meditation requires the separation of the psychic self from the physical self. The work must be done lovingly, with great understanding and discernment, or the student will fail to achieve physical or transcendental transmutation. The one or first matter is separated, and part ascends and descends, just as the mystic's consciousness ascends and descends during meditation. The tablet says, "Therefore I am called Trismegistus, for I possess the three parts of the wisdom of the world." This could be a reference to the three basic steps we have described. It refers to Trismegistus as king, philosopher, and priest. It also corresponds to the three realms, eternal, celestial or astral, and mundane and temporal, or to God, nature, and man. Knowledge of the three is necessary for the triple mastery suggested by Trismegistus. All that I have said regarding the work of the sun is fulfilled. The sun is the symbol of God and also of gold, which represents perfection, the result of the process of transmutation. Chapter 4. Growth and Transmutation. The Hermetic Museum, published in 1678 and expanded from a 1625 edition, is a representative collection of alchemical writers who followed the symbolism and terminology of the writers who preceded them. Admitting that there is something hidden that only the adept can know, they declare that anyone who wishes to know the secret must search more deeply. In this book are found quotes from two of these writings. The spelling has been updated. One of the most interesting subjects is that of the seed, a basic concept used to symbolize growth and transmutation. The glory of the world, or table of paradise. The science of the philosopher's stone. The author's name is not listed. The frontispiece quotes Peter. For of this, consciously, by their iniquity, they are ignorant, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth stood out of the water, and were in the water. The glory of the world, or table of paradise, a very precious book, containing much art, of the kind that cannot be found on earth, showing the truth regarding true philosophy, and the noblest remedy, and the priceless tincture, along with various valuable arts and their respective instruments. And now, in the name of God, the Almighty, Creator and Preserver of this world, I venture to show the hidden mysteries of nature, which God has planted here and condescends to reveal to men, and in what marvelous manner all classes of natural objects are produced, as a testimony to all believing Christians, and for the comfort of all afflicted and troubled hearts, seeing that all created things perish and decompose only to be renewed, multiplied, animated, and perfected according to their species. For nothing that is created or born is at rest, but daily undergoes increase or multiplication by nature, until it becomes that which is created and commanded to be the treasure of all humanity. Therefore, pray to God that He may give you sufficient wisdom and understanding, so that you may comprehend this art and bring it, by His blessing, to a successful conclusion, for His own glory and for the good of your fellow men. You must resolve to begin this divine and blessed work in the name of God, to serve all good Christians. For this treasure, which is above all earthly treasures, is only granted to him who proves to be humble, honest, gentle, and faithful, as much as the frailty of human nature allows, and who fulfills the laws of God through the goodness and blessing of God, and who has no inclination to deceive himself as to the true nature of the gift, or to make abusive use of it against his eternal well-being. It is the gift of the Holy Spirit, the loving present of the great God, which comes from the Father of light. He who masters this art must have asked for and obtained the wisdom of God, for he is the possessor not only of gold, silver, and all the riches of this world, but also of perfect health, longevity, and the comfort that will come from the reassuring and poignant passion and death of Jesus Christ. You may achieve the glorification that was given to Christ. Surrender your cares to God, trust in His word, and keep His holy commandments. Then God will be with you in all things. Your art, then, will give you true comfort, grant you all you need, relieve you in the midst of your difficulties, give you the means to supply the needs of others, and constantly keep before your eyes the living image of your own glorious resurrection. I pray you, therefore, that you enlighten yourself wisely in all that you do, that you do not hasten, and that you do not reveal this mystery to any mortal man, unless he is a lover of this art, and of a God-fearing, sincere, and merciful temperament. You must confess that this is a royal art. Furthermore, you must ask God to enlighten you through the gift of His Holy Spirit, to sharpen your understanding, open your eyes, and give you a profound inner vision regarding the unfathomable wisdom hidden in our art, which no wise man has ever been able to express in his writings. A spirit lives within, which by deliberate skill you must separate from the body. Simply separate the material part from the vapor. You must then add fresh spring water. With this, you must tirelessly sprinkle both. You will then have the true elixir of all this art. You must keep a great distance from the false alchemy of the vulgar crowd. Know also that there is only one thing in the whole world that enters into the composition of the stone, and that, therefore, any coagulation and mixture of different ingredients would show that you are on the wrong path. Even if you could perform all the different operations of our art, all the dissolution, coagulation, etc., it would be useless without the true knowledge of our subject. For even if you knew the right matter, your information would be useless without the knowledge of the method for its preparation. The stone, in its final and effective form, cannot be found anywhere in the whole world, in the heavens above, or on the earth below, nor in any metal, nor in anything that grows, not even in gold or silver. It must be prepared, that is, developed to reach its final form. But despite all this, it cannot be made better than is created by God, nor can the tincture be prepared with it. The tincture must be added to it, thus having nothing to do with our main objective, since it is something entirely different. Know that our stone is one, for it is a stone and could not have a name as characteristic as that of the philosopher's stone. However, it is none of our existing stones, it merely takes its name from the resemblance it bears to them. Our stone is prepared in such a way as to be composed of the 4 elements. For this reason, it has been called by different names and assumes different forms, although it is a single thing, peerless on earth. It is a stone, But it is not a stone in the sense of possessing the nature of any stone. It is fire, yet it does not display the appearance or the properties of fire. It is air, yet it has neither the appearance nor the properties of air. It is water, but it has neither resemblance nor affinity with the nature of water. It is earth, although it does not have the nature or appearance of earth, since it is a singular thing. You must also know that in our art we distinguish two things, the body and the spirit. The first is constant or fixed, while the second is volatile. These two must be transformed into one another. The body must become water and the water body. Then the body again becomes water by its own internal operation, and the two, that is, the dry and the liquid, must once more be joined in an inseparable union. This conjunction could not occur if the two were not obtained from one thing, for an enduring union is only possible between things of the same nature, and of this kind is the union that occurs in our art, for the constituent parts of the matter are united by the operation of nature and not by any human hand. For example, the eagle is a water that upon being extracted leaves a lifeless and inert body. If it is to be restored again, the spirit must be united with the body, and this in a unique way. The enigma of the wise, the stone, is the salt, the root of all the art and, so to speak, its key, without which no one can open or close its secret entrance. No man who does not know the salt and its preparation can understand this art. Metals have their own seed like all other created things. Generation and parturition occur in them as in everything that grows. This seed is a liquefied metallic matter of the earth. The seed must be cast into its soil and grow there like any other created thing. We must therefore prepare the soil, or our first matter, and cast the seed into it, which will bear fruit according to its kind. This is necessary for generation from one thing, namely, the first matter. The body must become spirit, and the spirit body. From thence arises the medicine that is transmuted from one color to another. The first matter is a thing brought to its present form by the hand of God and not of man, united and transmuted in its essence solely by nature. We take it, dissolve it, recompose it, and wash it with its own water, until it becomes white and then red. Thus, our earth, from which we can now see the sun and the moon, is purified, for the sun is the father of metals, and the moon the mother. For generation to occur, they must unite as husband and wife. They cannot by themselves produce anything, therefore the red and the white must be joined. The first matter is the earth, into which we cast our seed, that is, our sun and our moon, which then produce fruit of their kind. Therefore, for any man to know the principle and the method of creative nature, he must possess a good understanding of our art. In the beginning, when God made heaven and earth, there was only one matter, which was neither dry nor moist. It was neither earth, nor air, nor fire, nor light, nor darkness, but a single substance, similar to vapor or mist, invisible and impalpable. It was called Heil, or first matter. If a thing is to be made from nothing once again, that nothing must be united and become a thing. From this one thing, a palpable substance must arise, and from the palpable substance, a body, to which a living soul must be given, and from which, by the grace of God, it obtains its specific form. The philosopher's stone does not grow only on our tree, but is found, in regard to its effect and operation, in the fruit of all other trees, in all created things, in vegetables, in things that grow and in things that do not grow. For when it arises, being agitated and distilled by the sun and by the moon, it bestows by divine grace the form and properties peculiar to all living creatures. It gives flowers their special form and color. All metals and minerals derive their peculiar qualities from the operation of this stone. All things are endowed with characteristic qualities by the operation of this stone, that is, the conjunction of the sun and the moon. For the sun is the father, and the moon is the mother of this stone, and the stone gathers within itself the virtues of its parents. If you understand the operation, the form, and the qualities of this stone, you will be able to prepare it. Otherwise, you must abandon any idea of undertaking the task. Observe, furthermore, how the seeds of all things grow, how, for example, grains of wheat or barley arise from the earth by the operation of the stone, and by the influences of the sun and the moon, which they exert. Notice how they grow upward into the air, and how they gradually ripen, bearing fruit, which must again be planted in fertile soil. The field is prepared for the grain, well plowed and manured with rotted dung, for the earth consumes and assimilates its nutrients, and separates the subtle from the gross. With this, it calls forth the life of the seed, and nourishes it with its own milk, and, causing it to grow in size, makes it rise. The earth separates the good from the bad, and gives it as nourishment to all things that grow, for the destruction of one thing is the generation of another. It is so with our art, when the liquid receives its nourishment from the earth. This is why the earth is the mother of all things that grow, and must be manured, plowed, harrowed, and well prepared, so that the grain may grow in it, so that it may triumph over the tares and not be suffocated by them. The grain of wheat rises from the soil by the distillation of the moisture of the sun and the moon, if it has been planted in suitable soil. The sun and the moon must also compel the grain to bear fruit, if its function is to bear fruit. For the sun is the father, and the moon the mother, of all things that grow. In the same way, in our soil and from our seed, our stone grows through the distillation of the sun and the moon. And as it grows, it rises, one might say, into the air, while its root remains in the soil. That which is above is like that which is below. The same law prevails. There is no error or deceit. Just as herbs grow upwards, producing glorious flowers and fruits, so our grain flourishes, ripens its fruits, is threshed, sifted, cleansed of chaff, and sown again in the earth. After being placed in its proper and natural soil, watered by the rain and the dew, the moisture of heaven, and awakened to life by the heat of the sun and the moon, it produces fruit of its own kind. These two sowings are peculiar characteristics of our art. For the sun and the moon are our grain, which we plant in our soil, as soul and spirit, and just as they are the father and the mother, so will be the children they beget. My son, I will now explain in more detail the generation of metals, their growth and development, with their special form and quality. You will then be enabled to understand the principles that underlie our art. Allow me, then, to inform you that all animals, trees, herbs, stones, metals, and minerals grow and reach perfection through natural influences. As it is with plants, so it is with metals. While they lie in the heart of the earth in their natural ore, they grow and are developed daily by the influence of the four elements. Their fire is the splendor of the sun and the moon. The earth conceives in its womb the splendor of the sun, and by it the seeds of the metals are warmed well and sufficiently, just like the grain of the field. Through this heat, a vapor or spirit is produced in the earth, which rises carrying with it the subtlest elements. It could be called the fifth element, for it is the quintessence, and contains the most volatile parts of the elements. It is attracted by the sun, and again drawn downward by the rocks. Upon falling, its vapor is transmuted into a liquid, that is, sulfur and mercury. From each of these, a part is left behind, but that which is volatile rises and falls again, and more is left behind, becoming fixed after each descent. This fixed substance constitutes the metals. All metals, when perfectly developed, must finally become sun and moon, though some must be operated upon by the sun and the moon for longer than others. The sun is the father, and the moon the mother of all things that grow. Matter represents a perfect and indissoluble union of the four elements, which is the summary of our art, and consequently capable of reconciling and healing all discord in all types of metals and in all things that grow, driving away all diseases. Disease is the discord of the elements, with one of them unduly overriding the others, in animal bodies as well as in metallic ones. As soon as our blessed medication is applied, the elements are purified and reunited in a friendly manner, thus the metallic bodies are repaired, the animal bodies become whole and free from all diseases, and the gems and precious stones attain their due perfection. Chapter 5. The New Chemical Light. It is supposed that Michael Sendivogius was born in Moravia in 1566 to Polish parents. His travels across 16th century Europe take on a flavor of roguery. Many of his adventures with the greediest nobility, who stopped at nothing in their desire to extract the secrets of transmutation from the reluctant and defenseless suspect, especially one foolish enough to confess such knowledge, make for dramatic reading. Sendivogius's book, New Chemical Light, published in the Hermetic Museum, represents a good example of the union of philosophy with alchemy. The following excerpts also show the emphasis on nature and the analogy of the growth of the seed. New Chemical Light by Michael Sendivogius. Let the children of Hermes know for certain that the extraction of the essence of gold is a mere illusion, as those who persist in it will discover at the expense of their own experience. If, on the other hand, a person is able to transmute the smallest piece of metal, with or without augmentation, into true gold and silver that passes the usual tests, it can justly be said that they have opened the doors of nature and cleared the path for deeper and more advanced study. It is with this objective that I dedicate the following pages, which incorporate the results of my personal experience, to the children of knowledge, so that, through the careful study of the operations of nature, they may become enabled to lift the veil and enter her innermost sanctuary. The inner meaning of our philosophy will be unintelligible to proud boasters, to presumptuous scoffers, and to men who stifle the clamorous voice of conscience with the insolence of an immoral life, and also to ignorant people who have cheerfully risked their happiness on senseless methods. The proper understanding of our art comes as a gift from God, or by the ocular demonstration of a master, and can only be achieved through diligent and humble search, and by pious dependence on the Giver of all things. I would fervently ask the children of knowledge to accept this book in accordance with the spirit in which it was written, and when the hidden becomes manifest to them and the inner gates of secret knowledge are open to them, that they do not reveal this mystery to any unworthy person, that they also remember their duty to their suffering and distressed neighbor, avoiding any ostentation of power, and above all, that they render sincere and grateful thanks to God with their lips in the silence of their hearts, fleeing from any abuse of his gift. Simplicity is the seal of truth. Nature, then, is one, true, simple, self-contained, created by God, and imbued with a universal spirit. Her end and her origin are God. Her unity is also found in God, because God made all things. Nothing in the world is outside of nature or contrary to nature. Nature is divided into 4 places in which he presents all apparent things and those that are in the shadow. According to the good or bad quality of the place, she presents good or bad things. Nature is not visible, although she acts in a visible manner. She is volatile, manifesting herself in material forms, and her existence is in the will of God. It is supremely important that we know her places, and those that are in greatest harmony and closest alliance, so that we may unite things according to nature, and not try to confuse vegetables with animals, or animals with metals. Everything must be brought to act upon that which is similar to it, and then nature will fulfill her duty. The students of nature must be like nature herself, true, simple, patient, constant, and so on. They must always be ready to learn from nature and be guided by her methods, proving through visible and sensible examples whether what they propose to do is in accordance with her possibilities. If we wish to reproduce something that has already been accomplished by nature, we must follow in her footsteps, but if we wish to perfect her accomplishment, we must know how it can be improved. Just as nature has her being in the will of God, so her will, or seed, is in the elements. She is but one, yet she produces different things solely through the mediation of the seed. For nature performs everything that her sperm requires, being merely like the instrument of an artisan. The seed is more useful to the artisan than nature herself, for nature without the seed is like a goldsmith without gold or silver, or a husbandman without grain to plant. Wherever there is seed, nature will work through it, whether it be good or bad. The seed, therefore, is the elixir of anything. Its quintessence, its perfect digestion and decoction, or even the balsam of sulfur, which is the same as the radical moisture of metals. The 4 elements produce the seed by the will of God, and by the imagination of nature, the 4 elements, by their continuous action, project a constant provision of the seed to the center of the earth, where it is digested, and from where it proceeds again in generative movements. Now, the center of the earth is a certain hollow place where nothing is at rest, and upon the margin or circumference of this center, the 4 elements project their qualities. The magnetic force of the center of the earth attracts to itself as much of the kindred seminal substance as is necessary, while that which cannot be utilized for vital generation is cast off in the form of stones and other debris. This is the source of all terrestrial things. The seed that represents the product of the 4 elements is projected from the center of the earth in all directions, and produces different things according to the quality of the different places. As long as the seed of nature remains in the center, it can produce either a tree or a metal, an herb or a stone, and in the same way, according to the degree of purity of a place, it will produce what is less or more pure. But how do the elements generate the seed? There are 4 elements, too heavy and too light, too dry and heavy, and too light, too dry and too moist, one being drier and more moist than the rest. These are 1 masculine and 1 feminine. By the will of God, each of these is constantly striving to produce things similar to itself and within its own sphere. Furthermore, they are always acting upon each other, and the subtle essences of all are combined in the center, where they are well mixed and sent forth again by the archeus, the servant of nature. The first matter of metals is twofold, and one without the other cannot create a metal. The first and principal substance is the moisture of the air mixed with heat. The sages called this substance mercury. The second substance is the dry heat of the earth, called sulfur. The seed is neither the entire body nor a part of it, for there exists in every body a central atom, or vital point of the seed, even in a grain of wheat. Neither the body nor the grain is the whole seed, but each body possesses a small seminal spark that the other parts protect from excess heat and cold. Metals are produced in the following manner. After the four elements project their power and their virtues to the center of the earth, they remain in the hands of the archeus of nature, distilled and sublimated by the heat of perpetual motion that is directed toward the surface of the earth. Some think that each metal has its own seed, but this is a great mistake, for there is only one seed. The sperm that appears in Saturn, lead, is the same that is found in gold, in silver, in copper, etc. The difference is caused by the place, and by the time taken by nature to operate on them. For the purer the place, the more beautiful and perfect is the metal. We must also observe that the vapor is always ascending, and in its ascent from the center of the earth to the surface, it purifies the places through which it passes. This is why precious metals are found today where no metal existed 1,000 years ago, for this vapor, by its continuous progression, makes the rude and the impure subtle, and continually carries with it what is pure. This is the circulation and reiteration of nature. All places are becoming increasingly purified. The purer they become, the more noble are their products. The seed is nothing more than coagulated air, or a vaporous humor enclosed in a body, and unless the seed is dissolved by a tepid vapor, it cannot act. Now, the nature of this seed produced from the four elements is threefold. It is either mineral, vegetal, or animal. Nature creates the mineral or metallic seed in the bowels of the earth. However, the fact remains, that which is above is like that which is below, and that which is born above originates from the same source as that which is at work below, even in the bowels of the earth. The first matter of man is the earth. But if the second substance or seed that has already been created is placed in the proper place, nature will produce a new form of the same species. The artist only separates the subtle elements from the gross and places them in the proper receptacle. Nature does the rest. Just as a thing begins, so it ends. From one, two arise, and one arises from two. Thus the world was made, and thus it will end. I declare, therefore, that it is an exclusive attribute of God to make one from one. You must produce one from two by natural generation. Know then that the multiplying sperm is the second substance and not the first. The first substance of things cannot be seen, being hidden in nature or in the elements. The second substance can occasionally be seen by the children of knowledge. In the center of the earth, then, there is a central sun, whose heat permeates the entire earth to the surface because of its movements or the movements of the firmament. This heat transforms the water of the earth into air, or vapor, which, being more subtle than water, is driven violently upward through the pores of the earth. When it reaches the colder atmosphere, it is condensed again in the form of water. By this action of the central sun, the elements are distributed throughout the earth, and each one finds the place where it can grow. I affirm, then, that fire or heat is the cause of the movement of the air and of the life of all things, and the earth is its nurse or receptacle. If our earth and the air were cooled by water, the earth would be withered. In our art, you must imitate these natural processes as much as possible. There must be the central heat, the change of water into air, the elevation of the air, its diffusion through the pores of the earth, its reappearance in the form of condensed water, more volatilized. Then you must give the ancient one gold and silver to be swallowed and consumed until he himself is burned to death, and his ashes scattered in the water that you must subject to decoction for a sufficient space of time. The result will be the medicine that cures leprosy. Take care not to confuse cold with heat and heat with cold. Mix only the things that are similar to each other, and separate the contrary elements by heat. If you do not follow the guidance of nature, all your efforts will be in vain. I swear by God that I have spoken to you as a father would speak to his son. He who has ears, let him hear, and he who has sense, let him understand. The art of alchemy is true in nature. Nature is also true, but a true artisan is rarely found. Nature is one, our art is also one, but the workmen are many. Nature then generates things by the will of God from the first matter, the product of the elements, which is known only to God. Nature produces things and multiplies them from the second substance, which is known to the sages. All elements are mutually interdependent, even though they do not combine when brought together. But the queen of all is water, because she is the mother of all things, and over her hovers the spirit of fire. When fire acts upon water, the first matter is developed. The sages learned from God that this natural world is only a material image and copy of a celestial and spiritual model, that the very existence of this world is based on the reality of its celestial archetype, and that God created it as an imitation of the spiritual and invisible universe, so that men could better understand his celestial teaching, the wonders of his absolute and ineffable power, and of his wisdom. In this way, the sage sees heaven reflected in nature as in a mirror, and he persists in his art, not for gold or silver, but out of love for the knowledge that it reveals. If you think about this in the right way, you will see that you yourself are an image of God, and a small reproduction of the great world. Nature cannot operate before having been supplied with material. The first matter is supplied by God, the second matter by the sage. But in the philosophical work, nature must kindle the fire that God has enclosed in the center of each thing. The kindling of this fire is effected by the will of nature, and sometimes by the skill of an artist capable of disposing of nature, for fire naturally purifies all kinds of impure things. The three principles of things are produced from the four elements in the following manner. Fire began to act upon air and produced sulfur. Air acted upon water and produced mercury. Water, by its action on earth, produced salt. The earth alone, having nothing to act upon, became the nurse or womb of these three principles. In every natural composition, these three represent the body, the spirit, and the hidden soul. If, after purifying them well, you unite them, they must, by a natural process, result in an extremely pure substance. This gives us the following table: soul, fire, sulfur; spirit, air, mercury; body, water, salt; earth, receptacle. Chapter 6. Alchemy of Gold. The following commentaries contain an alchemical recipe by Francis Bacon, taken from his Natural History. Many have presumed that Bacon looked upon alchemy with contempt, as he referred to it but little. However, the present discussion seems to prove that he knew more about the subject than is generally imagined. In this selection, Bacon concerns himself with the basic similarities of things throughout nature, classifying them into two great families of things, a typically alchemical concept. Next, he discusses the production of gold according to the ideas of the time, with an emphasis on the laboratory work involved in the process. Francis Bacon, an English writer and philosopher, is known as one of the greatest and most profound thinkers of his era. We also know that he was the imperator of the Rosicrucian order at the beginning of the 17th century. Following Bacon's discourse, we present an essay on meditation by Basil Valentine, in his writing The Triumphal Chariot of Antimony, in which he gives the 5 principal points of meditation that must be considered if one wishes to be included among the true alchemists. The real identity of the author, reputed to have been a Benedictine monk, and the date of his writings have always been a matter of speculation. The Triumphal Chariot of Antimony first appeared in 1604. The parentheses in the following paragraphs are Bacon's. The spelling and the text have been reproduced as they are in the book, with the exception of the typography. There are 2 great families of things, which you may call by various names, sulphureous and mercurial, which are alchemical words. For as to salt, their third principle, it is a compound of the other 2, inflammable and not inflammable, mature and immature, oily and watery, for we see that in subterraneans there are, as the fathers of their tribes, sulfur and mercury; in vegetables and living creatures there are water and oil; in the lower order of pneumatics there is air and flame; and in the superior order there is the body of the star and the pure sky. And these pairs, although they are dissimilar in the primitive differences of matter, seem to have many concordances, for mercury and sulfur are the principal materials of vegetables and animals, and only seem to differ in maturation or mixture. Flame, in the vulgar opinion, is but incensed air, both having a rapidity of motion and an ease of yielding quite similar. The interstellar sky, although the opinion is vain that the star is the densest part of this orb, has nevertheless so much affinity with the star that there is a rotation in it, just as that of the star, and therefore it is one of the greatest magnalia natura to transform water or watery juice into oil or oily juice, greater in nature than transforming silver or mercury into gold. The examples we have, according to which the watery and immature substance became fat and oily, are of 4 kinds. First, in the mixture of earth and water, which, with the help of the sun, drew a nitrous oiliness, greater than either had individually. As we see, in this they placed plants, which require both juices. The second is in the assimilation of nourishment, made in the bodies of plants and living creatures. Plants transform the juice of mere water and earth into a great quantity of oily matter. The world has been greatly harmed by the desire to produce gold. I judge that this work is possible, but the means, thus far proposed to accomplish it, are, in practice, full of errors and impostures, and in theory, full of unsound imagination. For it is reputed that nature intends to transform all metals into gold, and that, were she freed from impediments, she would do her own work, and that, if the immaturities, impurities, and leprosies of metals were cured, they would transform into gold, and a small quantity of the medicine in the work of projection will turn a sea of the baser metal into gold by multiplication. All this is nothing but dreams, as are many premises of alchemy, and to reinforce this, alchemists likewise introduce many vanities drawn from astrology, natural magic, superstitious interpretations of the scriptures, auricular traditions, false testimonies of ancient authors, and things of the same tenor. It is true that, on the other hand, they have brought to light not a few profitable experiments, giving the world some compensations, but we, when we come to handle the version and transmutation of bodies and the experiments concerning metals and minerals, shall open the true paths and passages of nature that may lead to this great result. And we praise the intelligence of the Chinese who desist from making gold, but are intent on making silver. For it is certain that it is more difficult to make gold, which is the heaviest and most materialized of metals, out of other less heavy and materialized metals, than, vice versa, to make silver from lead or mercury, which are heavier than silver. Therefore they need a greater degree of fixation than of condensation. In the meantime, on the occasion of presenting the axioms relating to maturation, we will direct an experiment relating to the maturation of metals, transforming some into gold. For we truly believe that a perfect mixture, digestion, or maturation of some metals will produce gold. We remember here that we knew a Dutchman who had convinced himself of being a great person by thinking he could make gold, and whose words were that gold can be produced, but that alchemists overdid the fire in their work. For, he said, the making of gold requires a very moderate heat, as it is in nature a subterranean work, where little heat reaches. But more is required to produce gold than any other metal. That, therefore, he would produce it with a large lamp, which would have a moderate and constant heat, which would represent the work of many months. The device of the lamp was folly, but the excess of heat used today, the constant heat required, and the fact that the work demands a long time are not vain words. We will speak, therefore, of our axioms of maturation, which, in effect, we have already cited before. First, a moderate heat must be used, for it is always moderate heats that digest and mature. By this we mean moderate according to the nature of the object, for that which may be moderate for fruits and liquors will not act upon all metals. Second, the spirit of the metal must be quickened and the tangible parts opened, for without these 2 operations, the spirit of the metal, thus quickened, will not be able to digest the parts. Third, the spirits must spread evenly, and must not move irregularly, for this would render the parts flexible and united. This requires a heat that neither increases nor decreases, but remains as equal as possible. Fourth, that no part be emitted by the spirit, but rather detained, for if there is an emission of spirit, the body of the metal will become hard and intractable. All this will be accomplished, partly by the tempering of the fire, partly by the confinement of the vessel. Fifth, the most likely and best prepared metal for the version must be chosen, as this will facilitate the work. Sixth, sufficient time must be given for the work, not to prolong hopes, as the alchemists do, but to give nature an adequate space to operate. These principles are very certain and true, and now we will take a direction of experimentation, which may perhaps be perfected by meditation. There must be a small furnace with a moderate heat. The heat should be such as to keep the metal perpetually melted, and no more than this. For this, above all, is important for the work. As the material, take silver, which is the metal of nature that most aligns with gold, place, Together with the silver, a 10th part of mercury, and a 12th part of niter, native sodium carbonate, both to activate and open the body of the metal, let the work continue for the space of 6 months at least. I also judge that there should be, from time to time, the addition of some oily substance, such as those used in the recovery of gold that has become coarse. This, which is the principal work, will serve to make the parts more united and smooth. For gold, as we see, is the densest, and therefore the heaviest of the metals. It is equally the most flexible and elastic. Note that thinking of making gold from mercury, because the latter is heavier, should not give you hopes, for mercury will not withstand the effects of the fire. Besides silver, I consider copper the most suitable material. Gold has the following natures: quite heavy, cohesion of the parts, malleability, immunity to rust, yellow color or tincture. Therefore, the sure way to make gold is to know the causes of its various natures previously enumerated, and the axioms related to them. For if a man makes a metal that has all these properties, let men resolve whether it is gold or not. Undoubtedly, Bacon did not describe the complete recipe, any more than the most well-known alchemists did. His observations regarding mercury and sulfur also clearly show that he understood the correspondences in fields other than the field of metals. Chapter 7. The Steps of Alchemical Transmutation. This work is based on a rare alchemical book, an allegory that uses the symbolism of alchemy. The chosen excerpts are from Ripley Revived, by Irenaeus Philalethes, the pseudonym of an unknown author. Many have tried to guess his identity, but it was so well hidden that no satisfactory proof has been achieved. He is not to be confused with Eugenius Philalethes, the pseudonym used by Thomas Vaughan, who published the English edition of the Rosicrucian Manifestos, Fama and Confessio Fraternitatis. Ripley Revived, published in London in 1678, is a commentary regarding a 15th-century work by Sir George Ripley. In the allegory of this book, the lines highlighted and placed in the center of the page are quotes from Ripley. The rest is authored by Irenaeus Philalethes. The allegory is the beginning of the instruction on the 12 steps of alchemical transmutation. In many respects, it is similar to the alchemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz, the Third Rosicrucian Manifesto, published in German in the early 17th century, and to the Most Holy Trinosophia, an 18th-century allegory. The symbolism is based on the correspondence between the physical transmutation and the mystical transmutation of man. Everything in the allegory is symbolic, transcendental alchemy. The excerpt begins with the declaration that the calcination and purgation of our stone is the first gate leading to the castle. But the allegory begins with a traditional journey. We take you by the hand, as it were, through many arid fields and many deserts and thickets. They arrive at the garden of the philosophers, similar to the garden of Michael Meyer. In the garden lies the castle, surrounded by a high wall with 12 gates. When one gate is opened, it causes the others to open automatically. The castle, therefore, symbolizes knowledge or the secret teachings, as well as the 12 steps of transmutation. It also represents the alchemical vessel in which the transmutation of the self takes place, and, like the garden, it symbolizes the self. A great person is dead inside the castle, so that it is also, in a way, a tomb, similar to that of Christian Rosenkreuz, which equally represents knowledge. The inscription does not merely refer to calcination, but uses the symbolism of death in the quotation, "Thou art dust, and unto dust shalt thou return." Among those who mourn is one with the following verse, "I am black, but comely," telling the reader that this is the black first matter, the blackness of putrefaction, which is part of the transmutation. There is death, and then rebirth. Because the quotation comes from the Song of Solomon in the Bible, this makes the symbolism more complex by introducing the symbol of marriage. A guide must lead the initiate through the castle. Later, he is referred to as the water-bearer and demon. He represents the subconscious mind. He is a very stupid fool, yet he is extremely faithful and prudent, rather following than preceding the initiate. He is a slave and servant to all his brothers. The language of the text has been modernized and the material somewhat condensed. The author's comments are in parentheses. The first gate opened, that of calcination. Calcination is the purgation of our stone. We have led you by the hand, as it were, through many arid fields, many deserts and thickets. Now, lift up your eyes and see where you are, and welcome my friend into the garden of the philosophers. Here you can behold a glorious castle, surrounded by a very high wall with 12 gates, one after another, hindering your entry and taking possession. If one of them is opened, the others will open of themselves and provide you with a conquest more renowned than those of Caesar or Alexander. The first gate is buried in the ground, and little of it can be seen above the surface. Take good note of the inscription found upon it, containing the words of God's curse against Adam, "Thou art dust, and unto dust shalt thou return." Returning to dust represents calcination. Observe the coat of arms placed upon the gate, signifying that there is a dead man within. Observe, therefore, the mourning attendants, among whom is one with this verse from Solomon, "I am black, but comely," etc. This lady the sages have called Juno, or the metallic nature, which is very comely, yet black, for which reason the sun has shone upon her. Another, who seems to serve as the porter of the hall, directs these words to you, "Here enters nothing that defiles, or is impure." This castle is a fortification and must not be visited without a guide, who, as we have already indicated, is also called the water-bearer and demon, who can lead us inside and outside, and show us what these places are through which we pass. And now I will tell you something of his conditions, so that you may know how to please him, in order that he will be more willing to accompany you properly. First of all, then, you must know that he is a fool, stupid. There is no other more simpleton among his brothers, yet he is very faithful to his Lord and does all things with much prudence. He will not go before you, but will follow you. You must be careful with how you walk before him. If he has the opportunity, he will flee from you, leaving you in a world of misery. By his attitude, you will know if he is pleased or displeased. Therefore put bonds upon him, that is, tie him very closely so that he cannot escape. Then go wisely before him and observe his features, and you may go forward or turn back, according to the disposition observed in his features. Next, you must understand that he was born a slave. He is a servant to all his brothers. He monopolizes all the work and labor for himself. If you do anything, he will take a breath and leave you with all the work to do. Third, he has the habit of perpetual work, and therefore, if he receives an hour of rest from you, he will never work again, for in his father's house he committed the offense of Cham, Ham, son of Noah, being therefore considered a servant of servants. His body is soft, and he wears no clothes, for he is condemned to perpetual inconstancy, being as unstable as water, restoring also his natural heat. Of the radical moisture he loses nothing, inducing the solution to find our stone. The first place you reach is a large room with a black floor, with curtains partially black, blue, and yellow, in which you will find a corpse in its coffin, quite putrefied, a serpent almost dead from cold placed by the fire, and a fountain still pouring water into a receptacle next to it, in which an herb very similar to the Ros solis is planted. The fountain represents the fountain of life. The Ros solis represents the dew of the sun. The herb has black seeds and yellow leaves, with blue veins and black spots, continually soaked in dew. The leaves grow from the black first matter and are partly yellow, which means they are reaching the final stage of transmutation. Above all this, the sun is seen in solstice, shining with all its vigor, and beneath it a fire like that of Etna, burning continually. The fire not only refers to the physical heat of transmutation, but also to concentration and meditation. It still pours a small amount of pearlescent water onto the root of this herb, which through invisible pores rises and settles as discolored drops on the leaves of plants, which appear to be battered and withered, yet it is always full of drops that, continually falling and rising, transform the plant into a viscous juice, which is then dried and transformed into a powder that looks unctuous and very black. The ascending and descending water, in transcendental alchemy, refers to the elevation of consciousness of mystical union and its subsequent descent to the objective level. By philosophy, I promise you. Then I saw nature as a gloriously adorned queen, seated on her throne, bringing in her hands a beautiful book entitled Philosophy Restored to its Primitive Purity. I paid her homage, and she graciously acknowledged my presence, and gave me the book to devour, which I did, and immediately another, like it, appeared in her hand. To devour the book means to absorb its knowledge. Then my understanding became so enlightened that I completely apprehended everything I saw and heard. When I approached any door or gate, they, as if operated by a sensitive spirit, immediately opened by themselves, and all the inhabitants of the house revered me and told me that I would be treated as the lord of the place. For, they said, the queen and he are united by love, and she contracts a marriage with him. The initiate becomes lord of the castle, and consequently the king who unites with the queen in marriage. Paradoxically, he is also the initiate who has just entered the castle. A voice asked me, "What would you desire from this world?" I was somewhat astonished, but answered, "Nothing other than to be able to contemplate once more the admirable perfection that I once saw in a nymph who, with apparent affection, greeted me and gave me a book to devour." The voice replied, "You have already had the happiness of seeing her, and even happier were you to have received that book, which few achieve in any age." She retired to her solitude, and as an inheritance left you two great treasures, the treasure of wealth and the treasure of long life. Then I said, "This is nothing more than the aggravation of my misfortune. If I cannot see her again, my life will be a burden." I sat down and was lamenting when I heard a shrill voice next to me. I looked and saw an inexpressible light, in comparison to which the sun would seem dark. Very near to me I saw a highly secret place, and inside it a hidden compartment, round and made of diaphanous matter. The light represents knowledge and illumination. The compartment is not only secret, but it is made of diaphanous or immaterial substance, and of round shape, which signifies totality. In the place was the lady I had seen previously, and another person who was a king with very beautiful garments, a mantle of beaten gold, a crown of pure gold. There was also a third person who carried a pitcher on his shoulder like a water-bearer. In the center shone a lamp. The compartment was all closed and seemed to be made of crystal. The house was small, the chamber even smaller, and the crystal compartment was no larger than a small egg. The egg and the hazelnut that appear in the following passage are similar symbols. Both round, they have an outer shell and an inner part. They are a kind of seed and a receptacle contained within another receptacle. The three persons with all their possessions could well be enclosed in a hazelnut, however. Their features were so vivid that I could discern all their forms, which I could not help but contemplate with disturbing meditation and a sad countenance. Perceiving this, she asked me, "Friend, why are you sad?" "I am not sad, most noble lady," I replied, "but I am meditating upon what I see, which intrigues me greatly, for the vision I have before my eyes has no parallel in John Tradescant's Chamber of Rarities, which contains the rare novelties of the known world. She whom I a short time ago contemplated, gloriously seated on a throne, with the majesty of a queen, I now see enclosed in a small diaphanous coffer, with a stature so small that I can scarcely believe it, and she whom I considered a virtuous lady is naked together with a man, and I see that they have provided her with a lover, when I had hopes of being the one graced with her favor." Then she added, "My friend, that which you marvel at in this strange metamorphosis of mine, know that it is by magical virtue, meaning power, and is given to me solely by God. As for any diabolical art, which your scruple seems to suspect, it is due to your inexperience of these things. Your ignorance does not disturb me, for in these matters you are but a child, and I give liberty to my children, so that they may speak, think, and act. Know, then, that the devil is only one of my servants, and in my kingdom he serves God. Although he is the worst among my servants, he can do nothing alone, without me, against me, or above me. He is a deceitful conjurer, and can bring forth things that do not exist. Everything that is affected by him is under my power. I am obedient to all my subjects, who are many, and they yield obedience to me. I govern them, and they make impositions on me. Thus it pleased God to ordain. In my body that you can see, but which is not a body but rather a representation, for I am entirely spirit, I feel the sympathies and antipathies, the actions and passions of everything that exists in the world. I must always be present, for nothing can be well done unless I am present. I always work according to the object and its disposition, which marvelously alters the effect. Everything you can see is me, and more than you can see. I am at the service of all, yes, even of the lowliest worm in the world. Because I am so serviceable, my master has decided that nothing can disobey me or treat me with violence. The devil has no power here whatsoever, although he has plenty of malice. God therefore granted me the omniscience of all things made in the world, regarding their being, conservation, and mutation. Next, omnipresence, by which I am everywhere at the same time, and I am supported by the will of God, which is my center. All my subjects are placed under man. He therefore has the free power to act upon anything that is within his reach in the world. The soul of man, it can be said, is a magnet for me and for all my subjects by my faith in my God and Lord. Know that this place and my kingdom are in a state of innocence, and that the king is my vassal. He has many brothers who are made prisoners and kept in servitude, and there is no means to redeem them, unless he gives his flesh and blood as a ransom, which cannot be effective unless he dies and rises from the dead. Here, again, there must be death before rebirth. This I cannot do by myself alone, nor can anyone help me but man, for in this case God has limited my power. Man is the artificer who must perform the transmutation. I cannot join agents and patients, the active and passive, although he has given me the power to bring about that which may serve as a ransom for these poor captives. He gave me freedom to act subordinate to him in this world, although, through the fall, his wings have not been clipped, but obstructed by ignorance. If you could understand and believe, your soul would soon command all nature, for if you knew things as they are, you would clearly see the dignity of your soul, which is the image of God. This would inspire faith and kindle desire. In the soul, this is the ecstatic passion that attracts all phenomena of nature. This is the dignity of mental man. Now, my friend, listen to me carefully, and what I advise you, do. Help me in what I cannot do, and I will help you in what you cannot do. Thus you will be subordinate to God, who is both my Lord and yours. The blood of this king, who redeems his brothers, will give you a medicine that will cure all the imperfections of your mortal body. Although it is not an antidote against death, which is an irrevocable decree, it triumphs over all the miseries of life and grants man the most incomparable treasures of this world. Full of admiration, I spoke to her. Lady, I thank you for such a great favor. I belong to you, and everything you ask of me I will do. Then she said, under this chamber there is a furnace. Light a fire in it, for this king must sweat to death. I asked her what would happen to her. She answered, do not trouble yourself with this. I remain unharmed in the most violent of fires, for I am in all of them, and even in the most freezing places. Then I perceived the extent of nature, and suddenly she was no longer before my eyes, but where she had been, I saw a most exquisite light, which filled an incredibly small compartment, and I felt that my head seemed diaphanous. I wondered what could have happened to my guide. An answer came as if through the glass, saying, do not allow thoughts to fill your mind. He whom you seek is with us, for so it must be. This king is his lord. This made me see the water-bearer, and his countenance told me that he was my guide. I discovered that his pitcher was clear as pure silver, and that the bearer, the pitcher, and the water were all one thing. Right in the center of the water there was a very radiant and coruscating spark, and it looked like a burning lamp, without however being distinguishable from the water. The voice spoke a second time. Do not delay in lighting the fire below, and in tending it according to the voice that will give you instructions. I lit the fire before the open door, at the top of the high tower. Through a secret passage, I transferred my immortal fire to beneath the chamber. When all things were heated, the water-bearer took his pitcher and, by means of a small tube, poured out his water, and the fire stood out in the water, without any particular form, only increasing its luster. The water-bearer plunged beneath the currents, and I saw him no more. I saw a lady in the midst of this, who, in a way, resembled the beauty whose name was Nature. She was very beautiful, like Helen. The lady was naked, and at first appeared very small, and then kept increasing in size until the water could no longer be seen, for she had transmuted its substance into her own form. Unlike the first lady, she was impatient because of the fire I had made, yet she was so trapped that she could not leave. The king, seeing her, knew her to be his sister, his mother, and his wife, and ran to her, taking her in his arms. She embraced him in such a way that he could not free himself from her, and the sweat and tears soaked his garments so much that they suddenly changed their color to the color of silver. The king asked her what she desired. She replied that her desire was a conjugal union. For, she said, I cannot bear this heat and must die in it, and without me, your highness cannot have children. The king consented, and as soon as she conceived the king's seed, she could better endure the fire. But she was not content with one and desired more, up to the number of 11. Then the king felt very weak and exhausted. His sweat and tears formed a great current, in which she and the king drowned. While I marveled at the strangeness of these things, I thought I saw them rise again, but after careful observation, I realized that what floated on the water was a lifeless carcass, which turned livid, black, bluish, and yellowish. It infected the waters that before were clear. These became thick and black, resembling slime. With the heat of the sun, the moisture dried up, and I sought to know what had happened to the bodies. I found a venomous toad that seemed to be dying, and a raven almost starved to death looking for food, which ate the toad and died from its poison. The king and the queen represent the positive and the negative. Their union produces children or multiplication, putrefaction, or reduction to the first matter symbolized by the toad and the raven. The 4 colors represent the process of transmutation. A voice spoke to me, "You must not abandon us. If you do, our persons in the kingdom will be lost forever." I saw nature walking up and down among the carcasses, holding in her hand the incomparable lamp. I saw in those rotting atoms the ideas of all things, and I discovered that the king and his wife were entombed in a black field, and that the tomb was of polished ebony. The strangest thing of all was that the tomb and the entombed carcass were an inseparable whole. The lamp of nature is the true light. The tomb is of the king and the queen, or again the crucible of transmutation, but the ideas of all things refer to all knowledge. On the tomb I found this prophecy inscribed, "If the fire is kept always equal and continuous, they will rise again and be more glorious and powerful than before. Burial is descent and death, but they will ascend and be reborn." I said to the voice behind the glass, I must be instructed on how and what to do. The voice answered me, "Do not worry, do what I tell you, and all will be well. In the meantime, you may observe the surrounding places. Ask me, and I will inform you of whatever you desire." I said that I would consider it a privilege to serve her. She gave me a ball of fine silk and said, "Tie this to a peg of this tower and then walk around and contemplate the place. Take this thread with you and unroll it as you walk, and with this you will be able to return until you know the place." No sooner had I left the place than a thick darkness enveloped me. Although my head was transparent and clear, I took a candle with me, which burned continuously, but the darkness did not receive the light, for the two did not mix. Here and there, the darkness condensed into strange figures like birds, beasts, and creeping things of monstrous shapes, and the light only extended a short distance in small rays, and the darkness gathered in clusters. There was a multitude that could not perceive my light, but looked at it as if it were a thick cloud and found it ominous. In other words, they could not behold the true light. They could not bear the brightness of the candle, cried out, and fled. I saw that they had a light like that of the will-o'-the-wisp, or the light that is formed by rotting wood, and that of fireflies. By this they sat, reading Geber, Rhasis, and other ancient alchemists. The darkness had a false light of its own, with which it seemed that its inhabitants were illuminated. I placed my candle on the ground, which meant that I intended to return. When I could no longer see it, my head felt opaque, and a wind almost knocked me down. I took the thread and tied it around my waist. It was good that I did so, for I experienced vertigo, fell asleep. When I awoke, I thought it was no longer dark and that it was day. I searched for the thread, which I could not see in that light. I realized I was in a disastrous place with millions of bifurcations, each leading in different directions. Each compartment was so illuminated by the will-o'-the-wisp and by fireflies that it seemed to be day. The ruin is a world and a labyrinth at the same time. The light is false. I picked up a small book to see if I could read it. It was called Enchiridion Physicus Restitute, Manual of Restored Physics, with an arcanum at the end. I could not read a single word. An old and decrepit man with a rough face, cloudy eyes, worn hands and fingers came to meet me. He greeted me cheerfully and asked me what book that was. I told him, "It is my Arcanum Hermeticum." "It was a good book," he said. "But," I said, "I tried to examine the book and I cannot read a single word." He asked to see the book and read strange things from it that I had never heard before. The light was different from the one that existed near the tower, so I tried to read there, and I managed to read everything I could not read before very well. Only a few passages seemed to have been taken out, but I knew that my book was perfect. I remembered that the passages were those in which the truth was expressed in a few words. Using the thread, I returned to my candle, and my head immediately returned to its former transparency. I took the candle, and the places that previously seemed bright returned to darkness. But over time, my eyes were beginning to become sensitive to the first gleam of this true light, which in comparison with the previous light seemed to be the supercelestial light of paradise. I asked the one who was in the glass, and with whom I had held a previous conversation, about what I had seen. She said that some wrote about alchemy according to the light of fantasy, and not of nature. Their light seemed clear to them, yet they can see nothing with it except what is fantastical or written in a sophisticated manner by the envious, to seduce the fantasists. The light of nature uncovers the darkness where their imaginary light merely shines. The light of the will-o'-the-wisp and the fireflies makes their eyes so sensitive that the lamp of nature puts them to flight. They cannot see and bear the true light of wise men. You were among them, and if you had not the candle and the thread you could never have returned. I returned to my furnace and re-established the fire just as I had been ordered. I related what I had seen and asked for the verdict of nature. She told me that they could never expect anything. Acting in this way, other than defeat. They had no basis of truth, nor could they expect to know the great secret, nor any other truth of value. They do not work the matter in the proper way. For this reason we preserve the moisture, without which our stone cannot be penetrating. Our moisture is not burned, and the crucible is closed, so that the spirits are retained. In transcendental terms, this means that the true path retains harmony, and that the mystical process is within the individual. We unite like with like, for nature is repaired and conserved by its own nature. For this reason, our king is married to the daughter of the water-bearer. His body, his pitcher, and the water within it are all one single thing, and his daughter is the queen who arose from the water in which a burning lamp was seen. The king is her son, and he is greater than both. Know that in this place nothing is more difficult to obtain than water, which can only be brought by the one who holds the keys to the entire kingdom. Consider this as a great secret. Our water-bearer is the father of the king and the queen. Being perfect in age, or years, the king has at his disposal and enjoys greater riches than his father. But his father has the key to a compartment, in which there are enough riches for all those of the kingdom, being able to make the subjects as rich as the king. But only the king can dispose of his treasures. However, he cannot have them under his possession before he weds his sister, who is the water of the invisible pitcher. This sister of his is also his mother and his father, for she is one with the water-bearer, with the water, and with the pitcher. When they embrace, the water-bearer, the water, and the pitcher disappear, and they are left alone. Finally, they are drowned and form a sea in which two fishes without flesh or bones swim. After they dissolve, they form a broth called permanent water. This corresponds to the symbol of the two fishes of the sea, frequently used by alchemists. The sea refers to the body. The two fishes represent the soul and the spirit, or what we would call the soul, and the soul personality, or inner self. Alchemy applies to all existence, to the whole, and is based on the metaphysical theory expressed in the Hermetic writings and in the Emerald Tablet. Alchemy has levels of meaning. In modern terms, these levels can be classified into 4 types, each parallel to the others, their symbols being interchangeable. 1. Physical alchemy is the transmutation of matter resulting in gold, the tincture, the elixir. 2. Biological alchemy results in harmony between the body and the inner self, symbolized by the seed, the plant, and man. 3. Psychological alchemy results in self-integration, and is symbolized by man and woman, the king and the queen, and the son of both. The biological and psychological levels of transmutation are, in a certain sense, a combination of the physical and biological processes. 4. Transcendental or mystical alchemy results in the symbolic marriage that is chemical or spiritual, or in cosmic consciousness. The marriage, therefore, equally represents psychological self-integration and the union of man with the cosmic. The effect of alchemy on literature can be felt in Chaucer's book, The Canon's Yeoman's Tale, in Ben Jonson's play, The Alchemist, in Faust, and in the fairy tale that concludes Goethe's work, The German Emigrants. Chapter 8. Meditation. The Triumphal Chariot by Basil Valentine narrates and explains the 5 main points of meditation. They are: the first, the invocation of God; the second, the contemplation of nature; the third, sincere preparation; the fourth, the method of use; the fifth, the utilization and application. I have discovered that in this meditation there are 5 main steps, which must be diligently considered, both by those who possess philosophical wisdom and by those who aspire to the wisdom that is achieved through our art. First, the invocation to God must be made, flowing from the depths of a pure and sincere heart, and from a conscience that must be free of all ambition, hypocrisy, and vice, of all akin defects, such as arrogance, boldness, pride, lust, worldly vanity, oppression of the poor, and similar iniquities. For what does man possess that does not come from God? Be it his body or the soul that operates within it, all this man must obtain from the Blessed Father, who created the earth, the visible and invisible things, the firmament, the elements, the plants, animals, and all other things. Therefore, let your hope be anchored in God, and let constant prayer grant you this blessing, and be the beginning of your work, so that you may safely reach the goal. For the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. He who seeks the greatest of all earthly blessings, the knowledge that created all good, and the effective virtue that God generously implanted in stones, herbs, roots, seeds, animals, plants, minerals, and all other things, must put away from himself all earthly thought, aspiring only to freedom of the heart, and pray to God with the utmost humility. In this way his aspiration to freedom will soon be granted. Following prayer comes contemplation, by which we apprehend the essential properties of a thing, the circumstances to which it is conditioned, its matter, its form, its operations, and its source, how it is infused and implanted, the way it is generated by the stars, formed by the elements, and produced and perfected by the three principles. Contemplation allows us to understand how any body can be dissolved, that is, resolved into its first matter or essence. For this modification to which I referred as the transmutation of the last substance into the first, and of the first substance into the last. This contemplation is celestial and spiritually apprehended, for only the spiritual mind can encompass the circumstances and the foundation of all things. This contemplation is dual. One is considered impossible, the other possible. The first consists of endless meditations, which yield no result because their object is intangible. Such problems are the eternity of God, the infinite nature of the Supreme Being. The other part of contemplation, which is possible, is called theory. It confines itself to the tangible and visible that has a temporal form, showing how it can be dissolved and thus perfected in any body, how each body can confer good and evil, the remedy and the poison that are latent within it, how the healthy is separated from the harmful, and how destruction and demolition can be brought about with the real and true purpose of separating the pure from the impure. It is the most important aspect of our art, expressed in the following words: "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, through invocation, and all other things that men need, for the aid and health of the body, shall be added unto you." Theory, which lays bare the most intimate relations of things, is followed by preparation, perfected by manipulation, presenting a tangible result. From preparation arises knowledge, which unveils the foundations of medicine. Manual operation requires diligent application, and knowledge is founded upon experience, while the difference between the two is revealed by anatomy. Manipulation shows how all things come into existence and become visible. Knowledge points to practical methods, and this is nothing more than confirmation, the manual operation, which shows the good and brings the hidden nature to the surface, guiding it to the light definitively. For just as in spiritual things the way of the Lord must be prepared, so in this art, too, the path must be opened and made straight, so that the goal may be reached without any misstep or any aberration. After preparation, we must proceed to the proportions of weight or doses, for you must avoid taking too little or too much. When the medication is diffused throughout the body, we become familiarized with its uses, to neutralize its defects. We must discover the conditions under which it is most likely to be beneficial. You must learn that all things contain operative and vital spirits, which extract their substance and nourishment from their bodies, and that the elements are not exempt from these spirits, whether they be good or evil. Men and animals have within them an operative and vitalizing spirit, and if it leaves them, nothing remains but a dead body. Herbs and trees possess spirits of health, or no art could use them for medicinal purposes. In the same way, minerals and metals possess vitalizing spirits, which constitute their strength and benefit, for that which has no spirit has neither life nor vitalizing power. Whoever perfectly understands the anatomy of antimony must, in the first place, become familiar with the manner of its solution. Secondly, he must learn to regulate the fire, so that it is neither too strong nor too weak. Fire is the root of all matter. Through fire, the vitalizing spirits are extracted and dissolved for the purposes of our work. But we must take care not to mortify and destroy the spirit with excessive heat. The third point to consider is the proper proportion of the substance. As I have already warned when enumerating the 5 points that are the requirements of alchemy. Since the physical process of alchemy corresponds to the mental functions in meditation and mystical union, the quotations from Valentine, and even the obviously physical recipe from Bacon, can be applied to transcendental alchemy. Chapter 9. The Supreme Secret of the World. The man who wrote a golden and blessed casket of nature's marvels used the pseudonym Benedictus Figulus. He was one of the followers of Paracelsus and Alexander von Suchten. The book is basically a collection of writings by other authors, although Figulus included originals of his own. In the excerpts chosen for this booklet, the expression "one thing" or spiritual essence is a reference to the Emerald Tablet. The Book of the Revelation of Hermes, interpreted by Theophrastus Paracelsus, concerning the supreme secret of the world, Hermes, Plato, Aristotle, and the other philosophers who introduced the arts, and more especially explored the secrets of the lower creation, anxiously sought a means by which the human body could be preserved from decay and endowed with immortality. They were told that nothing exists that can deliver the physical body from death, but there is one thing that can delay decay, renew youth, and prolong short human life. Therefore, the aforementioned philosophers and many others, in seeking this one thing with great diligence, discovered that it defends the body from corruption and prolongs life, and that it conducts itself with respect to the other elements as if it were the heavens, from which they deduced that the heavens are a substance superior to the four elements. And just as the heavens, with respect to the other elements, are considered the fifth substance, so too this one thing, compared with the forces of our body, is an indestructible essence that dries up all the superfluities of our body and has been philosophically called by the aforementioned name. It is neither hot and dry like fire, nor cold and moist like water, nor hot and moist like air, nor dry and cold like earth. But it is a skillful and perfect equation of all the elements, a correct mixture of natural forces, a particular union of spiritual virtues, an indissoluble union of body and spirit. It is the purest and noblest substance of an indestructible body, produced by the art, which cannot be destroyed nor harmed by the elements. This spiritual essence, or one thing, was revealed to Adam from on high, and was greatly desired by the Holy Fathers, and called by Hermes and Aristotle the truth without lies, the most certain of certain things, the secret of all secrets. It is the last and highest thing to be sought under the heavens, a wondrous conclusion and finishing of the philosophical work. What the mouth of man cannot pronounce can be found entirely in this spirit. This is the spirit of truth, which the world cannot comprehend without the intervention of the Holy Spirit, or without the instruction of those who know it. This one thing is of a mysterious nature, wondrous strength, and limitless power. Avicenna called this spirit the soul of the world. For just as the soul imparts movement to all the members of the body, so this spirit moves in all bodies. It is sought by many and found by few. It is seen from afar and found near. For it exists in everything, in every place, and at all times. It has the powers of all creatures. Its action is in all the elements, and in it are the qualities of all things, even in their highest perfection. When the philosophers discovered this one thing with great diligence and labor, they immediately concealed it in a strange language and in parables, so that it would not become known to the unworthy, lest pearls be cast before swine. In its first state, it appears as an impure earthly spirit, full of imperfections. In its second nature, it appears as a watery body because its virtue is greater. It is closer to the truth, being more efficacious in its works. But in its third nature, it appears as an aerial body of an oily nature, almost freed from its imperfections. In its fourth nature, it appears in an igneous form, not entirely free of imperfections, but with many virtues. In its fifth and final nature, it appears in a glorified and illuminated form, without defects, shining like gold and silver, possessing all preceding powers and virtues in a higher and more wonderful degree. For it heals all living and dead bodies without medications. This essence also reveals all the treasures of the earth and the sea, converts all metallic bodies into gold, and nothing compares to it under the firmament. Although these writings may be considered false by the reader, they are, to the initiate, true and possible when the hidden meaning is properly understood. For God is wonderful in his works, and his wisdom has no end. This work of God is too profound for us to comprehend, for it is the ultimate, greatest, and highest secret of nature, and the Spirit of God, which in the beginning filled the earth and hovered over the waters, which the world cannot apprehend without the intercession of the Holy Spirit and the instruction of those who know. It is the best of all things, for nothing can compare to it, and only in it is the truth. Because of all this, it is called the stone and spirit of truth, the unfathomable abyss of God's wisdom, which thus united and included in the virtue and power of this single spirit the qualities of all bodies that exist. Therefore, said Morian, he who has it also possesses all things. This spirit is a genius, a divine, wonderful, and noble power, for it encompasses the whole world and surpasses the elements and the fifth substance. An explanation of the tincture of the natural philosopher, Alexander von Suchten. If Almighty God created the entire great world, all celestial, animal, vegetable, and mineral nature, from a single thing and primeval root, how could man be wiser than God? And, For this work, which contains no less than the great outer world, the seed and qualities of all creatures, use more than one thing. For this art we cite must imitate nature. The matter of art will be the matter of nature, and just as the matter of nature is singular, the matter of art will also be singular. Theophrastus, in Uber Metamorphoses, calls the other three principles mercury, salt, and sulfur. This is the opinion of Hermes and other philosophers when they speak of spirit, body, and soul. Remember, for now, that he calls the singular thing from which the great and also the small world will be born the red lion. But it is called a lion because of its strength and power. Just as the lion is the strongest and swiftest of animals, so too, among created things, will another thing not be easily found that is swifter, stronger, and more penetrating, dominating and directing all things, men and other things. Hermes confirms this swift force, saying, "This matter is the greatest of all forces." This is also experienced by those who know the lion and, through adequate preparation, have been instructed on how to use it in creatures. Then it is possible to verify how this thing occupies, conquers, destroys, and kills all things, even changing one form into another. Hermes perceive how it conquers everything subtle and penetrates any solid substance. This lion is called upon by many and known by few. Only those whose eyes have been opened by God to the virtues and powers of nature can recognize and use it. However, in substance, nature, and matter, it is very common, a frequently used thing of which Bernhardus states, everyone has it before their eyes. Morianus declares that it is so universal that no man can live without it. Richard the Englishman says, "This lion, by the help of nature and the art of the artificer, can be transmuted into the white eagle, and thus, from one two are made." At this point, the author wished to say that, in this art, man must follow the rule left to him by God, the first alchemist. God having created all creatures and elements from a single thing. Water, it follows that he began by making two things from the original thing. The first he elevated, making it a celestial water. The other was gathered below, and by coagulation became earth. So too, in this work, the artist must divide this process into two parts. 1. By distillation, a part is drawn upwards, transforming it into clear and celestial spiritual water, called here the white eagle. Our eagle is the true key to human renewal, the bath of the new birth and rejuvenation. This eagle is the first part of the water that rises upwards, the ascendance of Hermes, mentioned in this tablet. 2. The other part of the water, or of our lion according to the teachings of Moses, became corrupted and dry. This is now the second part of our art. To speak clearly regarding it, it is the dry, uncultivated earth. It takes its first name of lion because of the aforementioned strength and harshness. Hermes considers the inferior substance to be gross or descending. Theophrastus says, "In the beginning of the world there is a single element, which is the prima materia, from whose division, due to contrary qualities, the four elements were generated, which existed within it in potentiality. If you begin with one thing, you must first make two things from it. But if you take two, such as earth and water, nature having extracted this binary from one, you no longer have this work, and will only have to generate the third, which, as we said before, is always hidden in one of these two." An anonymous treatise concerning the philosopher's stone, "My noble and beloved son, so that I may communicate to you, in the briefest manner, my knowledge of the true and correct philosopher's stone, know and understand now that this stone is composed of two things, body and spirit, that is, of the feminine and masculine seed, namely, mercurial water and corpus solus, the body of the sun. As can be read in all philosophical works, it is the general opinion that mercury, free from foreign mixtures, must first be dissolved into a spiritual water, called by philosophers the primary matter of metals, liquor lunae, liquor of the moon, aqua vitae, water of life, quintessence, and a fiery burning water or spirit, through which the water or first matter and the metals are freed from their rigid and hardened bonds, and dissolved, returning to their primary nature, like the mercurial water itself. Ice dissolves into water by means of heat, for it was water before its coagulation. All things can be reduced to their primary condition. The philosophers therefore also wrote that every species or form of metal cannot be transformed into gold and silver before being reduced to its first matter. With respect to this regeneration of metals, observe well, my son, that the same can take place by means of the first matter of metals, solely by means of the mercurial water, and by nothing else in this world. For this water has the greatest of affinities with the metallic nature, so that after the homogeneous mixture, it can no longer be separated from it. Therefore, The philosophers indicated this water, saying, nature rejoices in nature, nature preserves, perfects, reduces, exalts, and unites with nature. Hence the need to know how to prepare the blessed water, which is a fiery and penetrating spirit, a philosophical water, and the hidden key of this art. For without this water, all alchemy is useless. Remember, therefore, my son, that the entire foundation of the philosopher's stone consists in bringing to a new birth the first matter of the metals, that is, the mercurial water, the perfect corpus solus, body of the sun, so that it may be born again of water and spirit, as Christ says. Corpus solus, having been born again of water and the spirit, creates a purified, astral, enduring, and immortal body, producing many fruits and multiplying itself in the manner of plants. Therefore, my son, whoever is ignorant of this new birth in nature, and this creation of metals through the water and spirit of the first matter, should abandon any attempt at this art. For this reason, the philosophers wrote that all things create similar things, and whatever a man sows, he reaps. In your work, therefore, my son, seek no other body but gold, for all the others are imperfect. In this regard, Isaac the philosopher says, the stone can only be extracted from a perfect body, the most perfect in the world. For if it were not such a perfect body, how could we extract from it a stone with the power to give life to all mortals, to purify all that is corrupted, to soften all that is rigid, and to harden all soft bodies? Now, my son, the wise men say in their books that common gold and common silver are not their gold and silver, for their silver and gold are alive, whereas common silver and gold have no life, being therefore incapable of transmitting to other bodies the perfection that they themselves lack. It is impossible for common silver and gold to perfect other imperfect bodies, unless the corpus solus and lunae, the body of the sun and the moon, are born again from the water and the spirit of the first matter, and rise as a transfigured, spiritual, clarified, eternally fixed, subtle, and penetrating body, which will have the power to perfect and multiply imperfect bodies. Now you have, my son, a brief explanation of why it is impossible to accomplish anything with our art unless we reduce imperfect bodies, by means of the philosophical fire or mercurial water, to their primary natures, in which water the three principles, salt, mercury, and sulfur, are united. It is necessary, therefore, to know the blessed water of mercury, or the supernatural celestial fire, by which bodies are dissolved and fused. This knowledge is the greatest secret, revealed only by God. Remember, then, that in this art fire is the instrument, following the example of nature, and furthermore that this water, by which the corpus solus, gold, is burned, destroyed, and melted, is not a common fire, but a supernatural, inconsumable fire. Understand also, my son, that this supernatural fire is the water of mercury, spiritual, sulphurous, and burning, in which the corpus solus is fused and burned, and from this fusion and destruction, a new world and the celestial Jerusalem are once again born and created. That is, an eternal, clarified, subtle, penetrating, and stable body that can penetrate all other bodies.